Whoa, what a video. Look at that. We're sneaking our rebranding in there as well.
I like it.
Yeah, beautiful, eh? It's going to take a little bit of time for some people to pop in. So before we get into sort of the meat of everything, maybe if we could just go around and introduce ourselves. I'll start off. So for those trickling in early, right on time, I'm Chris Bigman. I lead the agency channel here at Clearbanc. And so I really do two things in my role. I help to fund agency referrals like from Hawk and help them with inventory and marketing capital needs. And then I also leverage our technology to match our 24,000 plus connected brands over to agencies like Hawk as well. So those are really the two main things that I do and how I partner with people like Hawk Media. And maybe I'll pass it over to you, Ashley.
Yeah, absolutely. For anyone who doesn't know us over here at Hawk Media, we are your outsourced CMO. We are also an award-winning digital marketing consultancy and agency with offices in LA, New York, and Boston pre-pandemic. And since then, we've gone fully remote here in the US. So we're spread across 22 states and counting. So perhaps coming to a city near you, socially distant, of course. And I myself am the Vice President of Partnerships at Hawk Media. So I manage all of our third-party relationships, including our fantastic partnership with Chris over at Clearco, which, of course, as Chris alluded to, some of you may be familiar with as Clearbanc, who they recently underwent an incredible not only rebranding, but raise. So congratulations on that. And of course, I'm joined here today with Eric Huberman, who is our founder and CEO at Hawk Media. Eric, would you like to give everyone here a little bit more of your background?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Chris. So backgrounds in e-commerce, built and sold a couple of e-com companies. Really got frustrated with the marketing ecosystem and how hard it was to find great marketing talent. And when you did, how inapproachable and inaccessible it was. So under the mission of accessibility to great marketing for everyone, we started building a little team that we can basically go into brands, identify holes in their marketing org, and then spin up individual experts, all a la carte, month to month. Could be a Facebook marketer, an email marketer, web designer, fractional CMO. At this point, we're over 200 people. As Ashley mentioned, the last number I heard was 28 states. We're expanding fast across the country. We've brought on 70 people this year so far, and work with about 600 brands actively right now, and have worked with Chris on about 5,000 from the number I saw.
Yeah, so that sort of opens it up. So the reason that I wanted to sort of put some spotlight on Hawk is really our ability. I think you have 600 active clients. I think you've helped successfully scale well north of 1,500. We funded north of 4,000 brands. I think it's actually closer to 4,500 now. So just a combination there and the various ways we've been able to partner to scale brands. I thought it was appropriate that maybe we could hop on a call together and I can ask you some questions so that our viewers can also ask some questions and get some good answers.
Of course.
So beauty. So first question that I do have for you is like, what are you looking for all the brands that are on the call? Like, what are you looking for in an e-commerce brand that really signals we're a go, we got to put some resources on this. We're ready to help and scale this brand. What are you really looking for?
Yeah, you know, it's a combination. Like we always want to set up a brand for success, but we don't want to be a gatekeeper. It's and the antithesis of our ethos and our mission. We like the idea is to be accessible. So generally, we're not going to try to like dictate what's a viable product or not, or what has traction, that kind of thing. But we want to know that they have the resources to give it a great shot. And usually, the kind of ballpark on budget resources that you really need to have. I generally like to see the ability to spend 10 grand or more a month on marketing, or you shouldn't be hiring anyone else. That could come from financing, that could come from funding, that could come from cash flow. It really, where it comes from is okay, but you need to be able to spend 10 grand a month and for a while. That's kind of the minimum threshold. If you're not there yet, whether it's you haven't secured financing that you're going to need, or again, you haven't bootstrapped it to a point you can afford to spend that, I generally say it's still on the founder to figure things out and get going. Don't go hiring a marketing team, period. Not just us, anyone.
And just building off of what Eric said, I would say, as Eric mentioned, we don't discriminate. We're really in a great position to be able to help brands and businesses of all sizes grow and scale, because everything that we do and all the services that we offer are not only a la carte, but also month to month, which ends up being a really great model to let founders, especially earlier in their founder and entrepreneurial journey, stay nimble and be able to pivot accordingly. The one thing that I personally, as a digital marketer, always love to hear and look for anyone that's thinking about engaging with us is a growth mindset. So it's most exciting when we can really dig in with a team or a solopreneur even who wants to grow and scale. It's not as fun when they're looking to just maintain status quo and perhaps are a little bit more stagnant, but someone who really wants to reach more consumers where they are.
Right. And so is that part of the growth mindset for you? Would say they're willing to take on external financing, they're willing to hire, they're willing to order more inventory for those pushes that you have through the time of the year? Is that really the core? What's the core piece of the growth mindset that you're looking for, Ashley?
Eric, do you actually want to chime in quickly? And I'm happy to build off your comments too, but I know
agree.
You have a lot of thoughts here. So
it's more, growth mindset, I think, is the best way to put it. It's, are your ambitions aligned with you bringing us on? We're not coming on to maintain your business, we're coming on to grow it. So, and that sounds very simple, but the ironic thing is a lot of times we will come into companies that are not thinking of how to grow. They're very, cautious, very protective, very scared of what happens when they scale. And so that, along with someone that is going to be very protective, we need someone that's going to trust us. If you're going to hire us to do your marketing, there has to be some intrinsic trust. And if there's not that trust and assumption, sort of benefit of the doubt out the gate, that's where we run into problems. Sorry.
And what I would say, it's about supercharging your e-commerce and your customer journey and your outreach. And I think some of the core tenets of what we challenge brand and business owners to think about is not only that customer journey. And like Eric said, we're not here to, unless we're being engaged specifically for strategy, but we're not here to pass judgment on their product market fit or what their offering is. Although we can, if there is an interest or a need for that service, because we do offer digital strategy, of course. But I would say it's all about understanding what their needs are and where we can support them, because we can really fill any hole. They might have an entire team in-house, but they want a third party to sort of crunch the numbers and analyze what they're doing. And one of the things I also think we often challenge merchants to think about is taking a step back, looking not only at their specific return on ad spend or their ROAS or their ROI, their return on their investment, but also what is their CAC and what is their LTV and what is the ratio between the two. And, Chris, one of the reasons we love working with you and the Clearco team is you guys have tools beyond the data and the information that we have that we can offer to our clients from all of those learnings that we have across those hundreds of merchants that we're managing currently to the 1,000+ that we work with over time. Of course, you on the Clearco side, you guys have a whole platform for this that includes a lot of that great information and actionable insights for these merchants.
Perfect. Yeah, and I guess I'll plug it then as well. So the benchmarking, just for everybody that's on the call, if you're unaware, we have over 24,000 brands connected to us, so funded over 4,500. And so what we're able to do is to show you how your lifetime value of your customer is compared to people in your vertical. So if you're a cosmetic brand and the lifetime value of your customer is $126, how does that, are you in the top 10%? Are you in the bottom 3%? What is it? So we're able to provide that up front just by connecting to our platform.
What I think is so valuable about that, just so people actually, the utilization is you can look at where you're missing the benchmark and understand where the weak points are in your own business. So a lot of people understand, like, great, we have more data, but it's like, no, but if your lifetime value is half of the average, that means you should probably figure out your merchandising, your life cycle marketing, all the things that drive LTV versus focusing on new acquisition, because you might think that's where you're struggling and it's not.
Perfect. Question for you, Eric, is something that you guys do that's super unique is your month-to-month contract and a la carte service. So I just wanted to ask you, when did you come up with that? Why did you come up with the month-to-month? And are you seeing it pay off in the long run, that you're actually saying to these brands, hey, listen, let us prove what we can do, and we'll just do a month-to-month contract? When did you come up with that?
Yeah, it was right away. It was in the very beginning, because I always got sick of, I ran brands before this, and I'd talk to agencies and software companies and be like, great, I'm like, yeah, we want to try this out. Let's see how this goes. And be like, great, here's our annual contract. And I'm like, so cool. You want to get married before dating? Like in my background, I don't think that's a good idea, but I understand why that's nice for you. But that's ironic that I'm the customer and you're demanding, commitments from me. Like, I'm also not really into that. And so I really when I started this, I didn't plan on building something to the size that it is now. Like this was just like an immediate, like I need to fix this immediate problem. And oh, wow, this problem's a lot bigger than I thought. And so I just wanted to make it really easy on the clients I was working with. I'm like, yeah, just if you're going to keep us if we're doing a good job and communicating well. And that still holds true to this day. And so as long as we have great communication and then do a good job, we keep clients. And don't get me wrong, things happen, but you asked how it's going. We've been one of the fastest growing marketing companies in the country. And on top of that, when COVID hit, I thought that could be the end of our business. My partner and I literally used to joke about like, the only thing that's going to hurt us is if the whole world freezes, because like even in a recession, we're a very cost-effective option. So we actually could benefit from recession as companies cut their internal teams, et cetera. But a full-on World War III, that could be a problem. We joke about that, not thinking that it was an actual possibility. And then March last year, the whole world shut down. What happened that none of us expected is it actually helped us, because then people didn't look as quickly to fire us because they weren't locked into contracts. So they were comfortable in seeing how things moved. So that really helped us. And that flexibility on the intake also helps on the out for companies that are trying to figure out what's going on in the world.
Yeah, and I think that's what companies were doing, trying to figure out in March and April of last year, just trying to see what's happening on the day-to-day. Every day something was changing, right? And you're just trying to, but sure, yeah,
that's the exact conversation we were having was nothing's falling apart for e-com companies yet. So don't panic, like watch the data, don't watch the news, watch the data and see what happens. And some companies cut all their marketing, panicked, really screwed themselves over, to be frank, because our average client in Q2 of last year doubled their revenue. Like if you were in e-com in Q2 of last year, you crushed it.
Especially vertical specific as well, right? Like we noticed internally that some were maintaining, some were declining slightly, but some categories out there, home workout equipment, makeup, like it was skyrocketing. People were doing extremely well. These brands were doing very, very well. Again, category specific of the shift to working from home, which I think both of our organizations are leading towards. It looks like we have a question here that I wanted to ask you, Ashley. So the question is, generally speaking, what kind of ROAS should an e-com company be working towards, specifically on the Facebook and Instagram channel?
Definitely. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, my background is actually in paid media buying as a marketer, pre-partnerships. And just so everyone's on the same page, for anyone who doesn't know, ROAS is actually the ratio of the revenue that's generated from the ad campaign to the cost incurred on the campaign. So it's usually expressed as a ratio. And specifically when it comes to Facebook and Instagram, I would say the absolute minimum that you should be striving towards is probably a 3-to-1, although a 4-to-1 would obviously be much better. However, you would obviously know better as a business owner what your specific costs are and what your needs are to ensure that these transactions are actually profitable. It's completely possible that you might actually need an 8-to-1 or a 10-to-1. So it's really important to have a good idea of what your numbers look like, not just when it comes to goals and metrics that you want to hit, but this is why I think it's really important to back your marketing goals against your business goals and make sure that all the marketing goals you're setting actually map to a set business goal and are ensuring at the end of the day that you are profitable. Eric, did you have any further thoughts that you would like to add on ROAS?
Yeah, I appreciate the answer, because my answer would probably be less helpful, but I think important, which is be very careful focusing on ROAS. And the term ROAS stands for return on ad spend. The problem is it's usually a very short-sighted version of how your marketing is performing. ROAS on Facebook, as an example, can only be tracked for 28 days. And when it comes to a few things, first off, purchase cycle, how long it takes someone from the first time they see an ad to when they buy, a lot of times is a lot longer than 28 days. For $50 average order value, you're looking at usually 21 days. For $100, it's usually more closer to 5 weeks, 35 days. And then $200, it's about 6 weeks. And it trails up from there. It goes, and it caps out between 2 and 3 months, but all of those can't even be tracked. So your half-life and return of ad spend is not even being tracked for an average order value over, let's say, $60, $70. So that's one important factor. The other one is lifetime value. If you've got a $10 average order value, but it's a subscription that lasts 2 years and your lifetime value is closer to $240, your ROAS on a $20 CAC would be 50%. Look terrible. But your return on your CAC to LTV, which is a much more important metric, would be $20 for $240, like 8%, 12x. That's the kind of things you have to look at, is understanding your business. I look at ROAS not as like, is this working or not, but how can we continue to optimize that shorter term indicator? So that, because if ROAS is better, so is CAC to LTV. But a lot of people use ROAS as Facebook's not working, shut it down. That's not how to think about it. It's a great optimization tool for a shorter window, but not a long-term thing. So when you're talking, Ashley alluded to some of this, when you're looking at what your ROAS should be, sometimes it's 0.5, sometimes it's 8x. It really depends on your business and how you're able to monetize it. And then the important thing to know there is the way Facebook and IG work is on a bidding system, and it's competitive. So other people that are doing a better job of monetizing that traffic and getting a higher LTV will be able to spend more, and they'll beat you every time. So really focusing on optimizing that is more important than just what's my ROAS.
So constantly trying, there's a lot of acronyms and numbers put in there. So if I'm going to sum it up, basically focusing on how to drive that CAC down, and that'll basically improve a lot of the
LTV up. So it can be either. Your CAC can double as long as your LTV doubles. Your ratio is really what matters there.
Right.
I can spend $50 for a customer if I make 500 all day.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And okay, looks like we have another one here from Imran at Stanable. So the link between Amazon and off Amazon advertising, how would you link a strategy for something of this sort?
Yeah, it's a complicated one. And I will say up until about 2-3 years ago, I think 3 years ago, we really tried to avoid Amazon, because for anything that's not a commodity, it just cannibalizes your sales. So and when I say commodity, if it's not a problem solution oriented product that people are just buying it because they need this product. So like I need white socks, or I need, shaving cream, like those are good things for Amazon. But if you're selling a lifestyle brand where you're like, Dior or Nike, which went on Amazon and then pulled off, is a good example. Amazon's just taking advantage of your sales. They're not really helping you much. The problem is 55% of e-commerce sales are now done through Amazon. So it's one of those, you can't beat them, join them. So at this point, I think it's a good balance, but know that you have to kind of look at it in a blended way. Amazon's doing a little bit more to allow for tracking on off Amazon advertising, but it's still not great and not perfect. But you can start to look at what we've seen a lot of is Amazon converts better. People are a lot more trusting of Amazon's shipping policies, their customer service, than some individual brand. So people will, find a product on an ad, Facebook, social, search, whatever. And a lot of times they'll go back and Google your brand again, and Amazon will be ranking for your keywords, or spending ads against your keywords on Google. And people would rather buy on Amazon than buy from you directly. So it'll cannibalize a lot of your direct business, but it's also a higher conversion. The other downside, which we were just talking about, is you don't get to own that customer, so you don't get to drive higher LTV. So there's a lot of drawbacks to Amazon. That being said, the conversion's high, and there's still discoverability that if you have the right product, it can really benefit from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just building off of what Eric said, CPG is a no-brainer. There's clients that I have worked with directly that I've supported that have sold directly on their own site and also on Amazon, like TheraBreath, for example, is a client that I used to work with directly in this sense. And oftentimes what a lot of these types of brands see is that, of course, you have better margins on your own site, that you own also that customer data and that customer journey, like Eric mentioned. But oftentimes you absolutely make up for that margin in volume on marketplaces like Amazon. So that's just something to consider in this Amazon age, and where customers are primed for this Amazon experience of prime shipping and returns and that trustworthiness. It's often good to have a cohesive strategy across your own owned and earned channels in your own storefront and different marketplaces, whether that's Amazon or several. You might even consider doing a B2B offering depending on what your product is, like on Alibaba, another partner of ours, for example. But at the end of the day, we've seen so much demand in this and a rise in this that even here at Hawk Media, one of our big growing service offerings is actually managed Amazon services. So of course, as Eric alluded to, there's advertising not only on Google and other search engines, but there's also advertising on Amazon's platform itself. And so if you are going to be selling on Amazon, those are all things to think about. And then, to more specifically dig into this question here, how do you form this link between those different campaigns? I think it's really important to have a cohesive brand and brand voice. And if you are advertising directly on Amazon, in addition to other search and social channels, you should have the same sort of brand voice, the same sort of copy, the same sort of creative, if you're using creative, as much as possible. So that even if you're not technically owning the customer journey in the same way that you would on your own digital storefront, you're at least reaching customers in the same sense and in the same voice with this cohesive feel from your brand.
Right. So one thing I see a lot from brands, especially that are heavy on Amazon, is like, hey, we want to own our customer journey. We want to shift over to one of the platforms, whether it be Shopify or WooCommerce or whatever it may be. Is there a playbook for a brand to migrate and start owning their own data? Or is it differ in terms of what vertical you're on? To your point, like whether you're a brand that's essential or whether you're a brand that like a lifestyle brand, is there a playbook to shift from Amazon over to these other platforms?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say the answer is both. Like there's a lot of, and I'll give a little bit of pointers to like what anyone can do, but obviously different industries, different opportunities. So when it comes to shifting, usually what we say is start very simple, build your own site. I love Shopify. I think it's a very simple, great platform for e-commerce. And start doing inserts and other like very basic things, meaning inserts in the packaging so that when you send out your product, you start to attract those people to go buy more products from your website versus going back to Amazon. So we did this with a competitor to Home Depot that I won't name, but they were basically selling tons of different, home goods. And when they'd send the product out, they'd have coupons, they'd have things to go buy directly from their own website. And that became a $30, $40 million business pretty quick on their own site because they became the top seller on Amazon and were able to drive all that to their own site. And it was a young bootstrap company. It was a really cool experiment that worked. And then over time, you can start to take that transition, start to advertise directly. And also another one is branded keywords. If you've started to have traction on Amazon and people know your brand, you can start to bid on your own brand on Google and start to attract people away because people still go to Google to get to Amazon a lot of the time.
Definitely.
Yeah, starting to shift from Amazon's advertising is also their spend quarter over quarter. It's just crazy to see the influx of people spending because it's true now. You go onto Amazon to search. People obviously are searching on Google, but you're going onto the Amazon platform and searching for the exact product that you're looking for, right?
But what's important to know is Amazon's obviously having records, but Shopify as well broke their even their projections for last quarter. So even with all the craziness and the shift to e-commerce, we saw in the US, e-commerce purchases compared to in-store purchases went from 13% of consumer spending to 30%. And so that type of growth is exactly like it sounds. And now, even with that prediction, Shopify has completely exceeded projections, which means Shopify is a competitor with Amazon, like just plain and simple. You're either buying on Amazon or you're buying on a Shopify site. There's not really a lot of alignment there. And so when you see that, that means that direct purchase is also happening. And so I think, if I'm not mistaken, Shopify is like 7 or 8% of e-commerce sales now. And again, Amazon's about 55%. So still, you don't necessarily want to, direct to consumer is still very limited. So, it's literally 8% of 30% of consumer purchases. But that's why opening up both starts to become interesting.
Cool. Actually, if you have some history on the media buying front, on the Amazon, this is sparking something on me, which I was going to ask, but if you're a brick and mortar traditionally store or a wholesale seller, and during COVID, you're trying to migrate more to direct to consumer online sales, are there some channels that you just have to be on? It's like you need to prioritize these channels when you're going to launch to drive sales to direct to consumer versus your brick and mortar store?
Definitely. I think there's so many, it's so important to nail your marketing mix, and it's good to always be testing different channels head to head and seeing where you're getting the best traction. And it's going to vary for every different brand and business, not just across verticals. But when it comes to brick and mortar, for example, one of our platform partners that might not immediately come to mind as a great potential advertising channel is Waze. And Waze has actually seen an absolutely astronomical, we're talking hockey stick growth, as we would love in Canada for so many things. Yes, Waze, the navigation app.
Wow.
Yeah, Waze has 3 different primary types of ad placements within their platform. And not only are they seeing those brick and mortar, retailers or businesses advertising there as well, which make a lot of sense because people are navigating directly to them. But also they've seen more and more with D2C e-tailers in the app as well, because they have one type of ad unit that's specifically when you're driving and you pause full stop for at least 4 seconds, it's basically a banner takeover on the whole app. And of course, people can click through it, see what the offer is, and then make their purchase when they get to their destination. So that's been a really rising thing. And because of this COVID and pandemic behavior and all these changes, like I said, they've seen this astronomical rise in usership because so many people are driving and going on road trips as well. They've seen a really big uptake with their daily active users in these road trips and this consumer behavior that's shifted because people aren't flying as much these days because of the pandemic. And although they saw a drop off in March, April last year with people just staying home, now people, a year later into this pandemic, people are out and about, but primarily in vehicles, personal vehicles versus in planes and trains, let's say. So that's a really interesting channel to think about that could be applicable not only for direct to consumer, but also brick and mortar. And then generally speaking, I think that, you always want to think about having a good balance between search and social. And you also want to think about where they're slotting into your marketing mix or your funnel. Social can often be really great for prospecting and that top of funnel, especially when it comes to some of the video ad units on the different platforms. And of course, also consideration. And of course, they also have fantastic retargeting options across the different platforms. The thing on search, it's sort of table stakes. Eric mentioned branded keywords. It's really important that you're bidding on your branded keywords because if you're not doing it, a competitor might be doing it, or a marketplace like Amazon might be doing it that has a much bigger budget. So there's certain things that are just table stakes when it comes to your paid digital marketing strategy that you want to think about at a minimum, checking those boxes, and then also thinking about what are these other channels that we can test and try, because right now the biggest shift we're seeing is these iOS 14 changes are, of course, limiting the amount of data that these platforms are collecting, and in turn, these advertisers are using. So ads are becoming less personalized. And although it's a win for consumers when it comes to their data privacy and their security, it means that the perhaps impressions that they're being served are less relevant. So again, that's why it's important to test and always optimize.
Perfect. Very informative. Thanks, Ashley. So I see another question here. I know we have a hard stop at 4:30 Eastern Standard Time. I wanted to ask this one, Eric. I think for you might be great to answer this one. Is when you're going from 5K a month. Oh, here it is on the screen here. 10K a month in spend. What are a few things to keep in mind? Is cutting losses important, or focusing on ads more?
Yeah, so I'm not sure what the meaning of cutting losses is, but the first half, I can answer the first part of the question. Which is the biggest mistake I see made when people are scaling their ad spend to any scale, whether it's 5 to 10, 10 to 100, is again, going back to that purchase cycle. The day you spend on your ads is not the day you make the money back. So it's funny, I hear this nuance, and I even have to coach our own team on this, but I hear this nuance with like everyone that manages Facebook ads that doesn't understand the bigger picture is like, oh yeah, it's really hard to maintain CPA when you're scaling ad budget. It's like, no, it's not if you understand that people don't see an ad and then buy immediately. It maintains the same if you know your purchase cycle. So you have to, one of the most important things to know about your business is your purchase cycle. How long does it take on average for someone to see an ad and then buy something? So that when you're scaling, you know that you have to give it that period of time. So if you go from 5 to 10, but you have a 4-week purchase cycle, you're not going to see the benefit of spending double for 4 weeks. So you're going to have to wait that period and really feel it out. And a lot of people miss that and end up cutting off their nose to spite their face. And I hear things like, well, we can't get our ads to scale. It's like, it's not your ads, it's you. You have to learn how to read your data properly to make that happen. So really important to keep that in mind and understand your customer purchase cycle so that when you're scaling, you can monitor over that period and look at where you're performing and not. And then again, always be testing with about 20% of your marketing spend to allow for more expansive strategies. Because if you get too focused and too targeted on one thing, there's nothing scalable about that. And that's really the death of a lot of businesses is they just get way too scared of opening it up and trying things and taking risk. And when I say taking risk, I don't mean just betting on black. I mean trying, educated decisions to try testing different things to see if your company grows and being okay with it being a miss. But taking a very calculated risk on those things. It doesn't mean bet the farm, but trying things out, losing some money here and there is par for the course. You have to.
Right. Yeah. When you see those conversions coming in, it's pretty easy to say, let's double it on this one ad that's
exactly
working right now, right? But that's such a short-sighted way to look at it when realistically you need to continue to test to make sure that maybe you uncover another one that actually has a 5x performance. You can start doubling down on that spend. So,
or honestly, something that doesn't perform for the first 2 weeks of the ads and you just get a bunch of funnel. And then all of a sudden, 3 weeks, 4 weeks in, everybody's converting. Like it's those kind of things you have to give it time. And it's painful, as any impatient entrepreneur knows, but you have to do it.
Yeah. Ashley, Eric, one last word. I don't know who wants to take a lead, but I thought I'd just turn it over to you for the last minute here to say a quick word.
Definitely. I would just say thank you so much for having us. I think it's extremely important for everyone to make sure they have the resources and budgets they need to scale appropriately across their marketing. So for anyone who's here, who's looking to take their marketing to the next level, definitely check out Clearco if you're looking to ensure that you have the right budget to spend on those marketing campaigns. Like Eric mentioned earlier in the conversation, it's good to have probably at minimum $10K budget monthly before you think about bringing in outside help to supercharge your direct-to-consumer e-commerce marketing and experience. And of course, anyone who's interested in speaking to us at Hawk Media, we'd love to provide a free marketing consultation for anyone who joined us here today. So you will be hearing from us or reach out to us directly. And yeah, I mean, just thank you so much, Chris, Tori, and the whole Clearco team for hosting us today.
Yeah, I mean, what's nice is we're taking different solutions to the same problem, which is people that aren't able to scale their businesses on their own. And so big fan of Clearbanc. We have a great partnership with you guys, and thank you for having us. I mean, we're both about creating that accessibility to be able to scale your businesses. So appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, with that, thanks so much, and enjoy the rest of the day.